Germany is the third wealthiest country in the world, or fourth. So this is actually quite scary because Apple is run by a corporation and is owned by a network of stockholders. And they own not just this money, but they own the data of most of the people using the phones. The same with Google, with Android, which is probably most of your phones here. So this is where it starts blockchain. Okay? Blockchain technology started initially as a variation of cryptography technology. There was a lot of studies done by military forces around the world in terms of distributing databases. Especially they start during the 70s with the military operations going on and the missiles. Because you had this missile reach worldwide, and the military wanted to make sure that if one database was armed, that you could distribute the data in order not, of course, someone just go crazy and activate the missiles and create a problem for the world. So that's where it starts, the cryptography. So and as well during the Second World War, you probably saw the film by Alan Turing, that is the father of computer science, and he was precisely the one that created the solutions for the Nazis' codes during the Second World War, that actually made the Western world won against the Nazis. So from that technology, cryptography, there was a lot of the evolutions, and then of course blockchain came out of that. And most of this is creating ways of securing data and distributing data. Very important, distributing data. So the biggest challenge we have from a technology standpoint right now, besides the ethics, and I'll go on the ethics, is that most of this data is centralized. For instance, Amazon. Amazon, at the moment, is the biggest data provider in the planet. Most of the governments worldwide are depending on the service of Amazon. Then, of course, Microsoft, Google, and IBM. And of course, Apple has their own service. They're not providing cloud solutions, but they have their own service because we are all using their phones and devices and computers. So the database of Amazon is particularly interesting because, for instance, Amazon at the moment has in their service the database of the CIA, the database of the FBI, and most of the intelligence service worldwide. So this data, if it's hacked, you're hacking in some of the databases, and you're hacking about the information about all of us, about the secrets of the countries, about the economy, and all the different things. So the blockchain technology was created as a way of distributing this data through computers all over the world, nodes, called nodes, or systems of data. And distributing this data, you find a way of avoiding that you can actually hack one area. Because if you hack one computer, the data passes to thousands of other computers. So that makes it, in theory, impossible to hack. But as you know, as humans, we always try to find a way. So even this technology can be hacked. Okay, there's no solutions. Very important thing I want to tell, I think the students here are from finance and technology, you know? So everything in finance and technology is that about creativity. And sometimes creativity can go for the right or the wrong. I hope we use it, well, creativity normally is for the good, but sometimes we have bad creativity, let's put it that way. So it's just very important that you consider these things. So technology doesn't solve the problems, it's us, humans. The technology is to help us, it's tools, okay? And the very important thing is that blockchain is not a silver bullet technology. There's no silver bullet technologies. There's us, humans, using the technology. And the very important thing is, one of the biggest things that gets me, that's why I'm not stopping activism in the sense of education. We cannot think that technology is going to solve our problems. By the contrary, if you leave technology to solve our problems, we'll be managed by technology. I don't want to be on that. And I hope you don't as well, because you don't want to be run by machines. So this is happening right now, okay? So it's not just in a scenario of science fiction. So I'm going just to try to pass a couple of slides. I don't know if I can do it here. I don't think I can. I will have to use this. So this is some of the things I've been doing. You can see this in my profile. So I want to start by this for Charles Darwin. That is, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, okay? It's the one that adapts. Okay? This is very important from an economic standpoint, from a technology standpoint, and even from a cultural standpoint. The cultures that, if you look at all the evolution of civilization, all civilizations, when they were in their peak, they were destroyed by smaller civilizations. They were more agile. Because they became institutionalized and they forgot that they had to continue innovating, they had to continue changing. So, and I want to start with this, okay? This is very interesting and this is very funny. So if you look here, okay, we have a prehistorical innovation stuff about the wheel, but look at this from Newsweek in 1995. The title is very self-explanatory, Why the Internet Will Fail. Okay, I don't think Internet failed. Actually, Newsweek failed. They were acquired by Bloomberg. They're at the moment a property of Bloomberg. Okay, so we are in the same moment in terms of Internet. There's a lot of people talking about blockchain technology as the Internet. Some people love it and understand it. Some people think, it's just some crazy guys doing cryptocurrencies and trying to destroy the economy. No. It's a much more serious stuff. For instance, just for you to understand how big this is, so for instance, Dr. Reyes was last week in Oxford University and they're creating an entire building about blockchain. The European Union, which is still one of the biggest economies in the world, probably the biggest because all the countries together, invested recently 600 billion euros in blockchain technology. And it was the first time in the history of the European Union where all the countries sign without fighting. I'm not joking. When I heard that, I was, what? I could not believe it. So this is not just some crazy guys doing cryptocurrencies, okay? Because it's the technology that we're talking about. And this technology is very, very powerful, and it can be used for the good. For instance, if you start using this technology, so I mentioned about distributing data. So patenting the service, that's just one application. There's thousands of applications. And that's why it's so powerful. Because you can use it, for instance, for supply chain. For instance, there's an experiment going on here in Malaysia that is putting the data about palm oil in blockchain. Why this is so important? Because at the moment, most of the supply chain systems in the world are corrupt. You don't know if the product that comes, the fabrics that we use are coming from child labor exploitation. We don't know that the product, for instance, the production of black tissues and fabrics is creating more pollution than almost anything in the world. And for instance, the fashion industry is one of the most polluting industries in the planet. So it's a big thing that's just basic things that we use on a day-to-day that we don't think about it. So if we have supply chain put on blockchain, and I'll explain why this is so important. So if you track record from the moment that the cotton was produced until the moment that we dressed it, we can avoid that the companies can actually do crimes. We can avoid that we have clothes that are created that are not necessary. But this creates a fundamental question. If this gets all in digital, and this is happening, okay? It's just a question right now probably of 5-10 years. Everything is going to be digital. So you're going to have us and our digital ego. And at the moment, everyone here as a student, your biggest asset is your personal brand. That is your data. You are a data center as well. So you need to manage your data, because if I'm going to hire you for my company, Dr. Reyes, the first thing I'm going to do is search you. Understand if you behave well, understand your job, and I will have to go to LinkedIn, I will have to go to your CV, but I want to see online. So these behaviors are going to be fundamental, the critical element for the economy in the next 5 to 10 years. And this creates a lot of questions, because for instance, the supply chain is a positive example. It's very straightforward. We just need to create, for instance, using Internet of Things technologies, put sensors in the factories, making sure the factories, because if you have a sensor in the factory, let's say when, for instance, if Louis Vuitton is going to produce a very expensive suit, they don't want to have the risk that the suit came from child exploitation. The same with Nike or Adidas or whatever other brand. So this is straightforward to understand that it's, for instance, all these corporations are working in blockchain technology because they know that it's important. For instance, I'm working with a fabric producer, he's a researcher that works with the United Nations, And one of the things he did already was creating a system, actually is developed here in Asia, and he's actually for instance, working with Zara and other big groups to make sure that they track the system of the supply chain. This is critical for them because they want to make sure that the clothes, first of all, this creates quality control about the data, and it creates efficiency, and of course avoids problems that we know. And as well, it can create a lot of solutions towards pollution and sustainability that we have nowadays. The supply chain is the biggest thing of blockchain. And as you can understand already, that is not about cryptocurrencies, okay? This is just one. The second one, of course, is finance. Actually, it's probably the first. In terms of mass adoption of blockchain worldwide, is definitely financial industry. Why? And that was partly because of the success of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has a lot of positive and negative things, okay? And I don't want to go too much on the negative or positive, but I just want to explain that the Bitcoin experience proved one thing, that you can actually digitize value and create a system of almost perfection technological capacity. So far, no one hacked the Bitcoin technology. And the Bitcoin technology is one of the most perfect, I'm talking pure from a technology perspective, okay? Not from the speculation, I'll go there. So from a perspective of technology, Bitcoin is still probably one of the top examples of technology in history. Because it was creating the crypto system for a community of users of the platform, of the currency. It digitized value, and this value, of course, has fluctuations like the fiat money. Fiat money is the money we use in the day-to-day operations. And at the same time, it proved that you can have a security of the number of the value of the item that is the Bitcoin. So this is pure from a technology standpoint, okay? And what Bitcoin proved is that you can actually send money from person A to person B without requiring 20 different sources. So this is the fundamental shift of blockchain technology. This was possible because of one thing called smart contracts. So a smart contract is like a DocuSign. I'm sure you use DocuSign online. So you sign a document online and you send the document to another person. That's a smart contract, but in a very basic way. So smart contract is a digital contract between two parts that is done with computer cryptography. That means that part A signs the document, and then this gets encrypted, and then it goes to the person or the part B, and this data is in a distributed ledger. That makes it impossible to hack the data from point 1 to point B, because the data is going around circles, and is going through a lot of nodes of computers, as I mentioned before. And at the same time, creates a possibility to avoid all the problems that we have in the financial industry worldwide. There is the middleman, there is the corruption, there is the lack of transparency. And at the same time, it creates a lot of economy of scale, because this can save billions and billions of dollars in transactions. And you know why we have so much middlemen? It's not necessarily because people want to be corrupt. Ironically, the middleman in finance, let's say, if I send money from Malaysia to London, what is going to happen is that the Malaysia bank has a relationship with SWIFT, and then there's the SWIFT Malaysia part, then the SWIFT Malaysia, or SWIFT UK part. Let's say if you send money from Malaysia to London. And then what happens is that the SWIFT will process that, but before that, there's the due diligence of the person. So your bank knows the person in Malaysia is a reputable person, but the bank in London does know. So they don't want to receive money that they think it might come from a bad provenance. So what they do is that they will have to have another middleman. So you're talking about already 6 stages. Person A sends money to London, it goes through SWIFT. Then it goes through a due diligence on the person. So 3 stages. Then it goes to UK, SWIFT again, due diligence again, and then the person receives the money. This is just 6 stages. But then we have 7 and 8. Is that if the price of the Malaysian currency is at this level, the bank has to adapt to the rate of the day. And then, if it comes one day after, the rate will be up or down. So there's 7 and 8 layers. We're talking about 8 ways of doing transfers. And this is why, that's why the financial industry is so complex and tricky. So the blockchain technology solves this out of the box. Because you just send money to part 1 to part B. But this brings up a big fundamental question, is that things are not so black and white. Technological wise, it's very simple. But it's not black and white because each country has different regulatory part, financial rules, and as well some countries are seen as AA+, other countries are not like that. So this creates a lot of layers of transparency. For instance, I'm working in a big pilot in Africa with 1 million people, and for instance, as well, in some countries, there's no digital systems. It's all on paper. Actually, paper is still the biggest technology in the world. Paper is a technology, don't forget it. That's the biggest technology in the world. So, this is just for you to understand how complex this is and how simple it is. And that's why you, as financial students and financial professors, you have that responsibility to understand this and create solutions that can work. But in order to create solutions that can work, it comes back to the internet. Why the internet succeeded? It took 15 years, okay? It was not from one day to the other. First of all, was scaling the technology, and second was creating policies around the world for people to understand it and to use it. Because of course, some of you are very young, but if you look at the past, the ones that were using emails when the internet started, they were very slow. And it was very annoying. Some emails will take 1 day to go. I don't know if you remember. I'm a bit older than most of you, but you understand that. And of course, if you would like to search something online, it would be super slow. And if you use the first search engines, it would be very, very basic. And then Google came and they pushed things to the next level.